What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Well, guys, tell you what, yesterday was rough for Colts
Yeah.
people, Colts fans, Colts media, just everybody. The game was extremely rough, especially at the end of the game. Also, welcome on Matt from Inside the Horseshoe. How you doing, Matt?
Doing pretty good. I guess as well as we can do after yesterday.
Yeah, no kidding. So, just to set the stage, in case some people who are watching this video either didn't watch the game or maybe just need a little bit of a review. So, Indianapolis at the end of the game they're up by 5, right? The Michael Pittman, I believe it was a Michael Pittman touchdown that put
Yeah.
them up in that game by 5. And really, all they need from their defense is just to stop. The Browns were down by 5 points, Matt, in this game. So I know I've seen some different people who have said, why the Colts allow PJ Walker and them to drive all the way down? And I'm like, you're playing pretty much prevent defense at that point, right? You're pretty much
Yeah.
playing like, we'll let you get those dink and dunk plays, right? But when it comes down to the red zone, like that's when they tighten up. That's when they stiffen up and they don't allow, the Browns and what they're doing to punch it in, right? So you go down and, it looks pretty good, right? The Colts are really able to shut down Cleveland when they get kind of into that area where they could potentially get a little bit scary, right? Where they could potentially score, within that 20-yard line ish, somewhere around there. And then we all know about, Matt, the penalties. First off,
Mhm.
the one against Daryl Baker, where it really looked like it was an offensive pass interference play because the wide receiver pushed down Daryl Baker, and that's kind of a tic tac play. It's like I don't like that, but whatever. But then again, back to back plays. The second play, which is I think the far more egregious one of the two, the ball's 5 yards past and above anybody who could potentially catch that ball. Actually,
Yeah.
like flies into the stands, and they call pass interference, and that puts the ball from about from the penalty about the 10-yard line all the way up to about the 1-yard line. And Indianapolis and their defense, after 2 plays of getting screwed, they almost make a stop on 4th down, but it's just like it's really like a matter of inches when it all
Right.
comes down to it. And obviously, Kareem Hunt punches it in, and Cleveland takes the lead, and they ultimately win that game. So, Matt, I've seen this a little bit today, and this is something I'm genuinely just confused at. I guess a couple points. Number one, people blaming the defense for losing that game for Indianapolis. And number two, I've seen different people who have said the penalties weren't the reason the Colts lost that game. What are your
Right.
thoughts on kind of those two different things there in regards to kind of how that game ended and just kind of the dramatic fashion?
Yeah. So the first one, I don't know how you can blame the defense for this loss. I mean, I know people have been blaming the defense pretty much for the entire season because the Colts are the only offense scored 20 points a game in every game this year. But you can't really put the blame on the defense because in this game, had a strip sack in the end zone, which gave them a touchdown. You had a blocked field goal, which would have won the game for them. You had a strip sack again inside their 50. You had another interception by Gardner Minshew. And I didn't think Gardner Minshew was terrible. It was just a great play by Denzel Ward on that. That was a great play to get that pick. But 3 fumbles by Minshew, all within, the 50-yard line or a touchdown for Cleveland. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. And then on that last drive for Cleveland, like you said, they're playing prevent defense. They're doing a bend but don't break type of thing where, yeah, we'll let you go down the field, but you're not getting an end zone. Now, when it comes to the penalties, the first one, that shouldn't have been illegal contact at all. I think it was Amari Cooper. It was the receiver. It was him or Amari Cooper. He made contact first. He put his hand in the face mask of Daryl Baker covering his face. I don't think that's a penalty right there. And then also, like you said, do the refs think that Peoples-Jones is going to be like Michael Jordan at the end of Space Jam and just reach his arm all the way down there to grab the football? I don't think that's humanly possible to do at all. So Well, I don't think it's just the penalties that cost the Colts a game, because I think there was other things that did play a factor into it, that if it went different, the game probably would have ended differently. But I think the penalties absolutely played a big factor in the Colts losing, because you take away that first penalty right there, that's ball game. That's a fumble right there recovered by the Colts. You just don't know after if you don't call the pass interference. Who knows? Maybe they do score, but I mean, you take that away, that takes away an extra down, and it keeps them away from the 1 yard line.
Well, Matt, I was just looking at the stats that the Browns had passing the football yesterday, and you would think from how different people are reacting and saying, we got sliced up by a practice squad quarterback, you would think that he was prime Gardner Minshew against the Colts in Jacksonville. Like, you would think it was that bad, but actually, Matt, he completed under 50% of his passes, not even 200 yards, threw an interception, didn't throw a touchdown. And so I look at that and I say, okay, the first one, obviously terrible, because that would have been ball game right there. But even then, Matt, with how good the Colts had been playing PJ Walker and defending the pass pretty much all day long, I have confidence that based off of that, they still would have gotten the turnover based off of how good they had been playing up to that point, right? If it wasn't for that penalty. But really, for me, the backbreaker was the second one, the one that was putting him at the 1 yard line. And Matt, it's crazy to me that the Colts still almost stopped them inside the one, despite being screwed over 2 times. Their defense only came within inches of stuffing Kareem Hunt on 4th down. So it's just crazy to me. And so I think just based off of that, I look at that and I just say, yes, okay, I get it. The turnovers, clearly they were the reason why this game probably wasn't a blowout, because like if you look at it, the Colts offensively and defensively, they dominated this game. I mean, they had over 150 yards rushing and over 300 yards passing, and they held Cleveland under 200 yards passing. And outside of the Jerome Ford 69-yard run, Cleveland averaged 2.5 yards per carry. Besides that play, take that play out, 2.5 yards per carry. So Indianapolis did a great job of pretty much dominating this Cleveland team, but they got in their own way with the turnovers, right? That was the biggest thing. Myles Garrett it felt like it was the Colts offense versus Myles Garrett for a while.
Yeah.
He's just on another level, but I think that's kind of the biggest reason. But ultimately, Matt, you were in position to win. You should have won yesterday. There's no question. Despite doing all those things, tripping over yourself really in the first half, you still were able to claw and fight your way back, and were able to really be in control of that game when it mattered. And I know there's some people who are upset with Shane Steichen and kind of the way he handled that last drive. But you know what? I think about it, and maybe I would have done a few things differently. But also, your defense has been shutting down Cleveland's offense all day long. So you're like, we can trust our defense to finish it out. Let's not risk and do something stupid, turn the ball over like we've done before within our own, on our side of the field, and give Cleveland a short field. So I just look at it like, the penalties, while, you can point to other things, for me, those things were clear in a way. They had to be the deciding factor in this game, because it's impossible for any defense to stop a team on the 1 yard line when they have a first down. Like, it's just, it's impossible pretty much. So I don't know. I just kind of look at those things and I say, I can't blame the defense for that. And also I just can't blame, I just can't not blame the refs for really giving the Browns the game. Like, I've never seen something like that, Matt, where it's so clear and obvious what the agenda was there. I mean, I'm not a person that typically likes to say the refs screwed us over, but that was the most blatant and obvious thing I think we've seen in a Colts game against the Colts. Maybe for me, that's a first for me. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. And, for those who are blaming the defense, again, like, how many touchdowns they allowed in this game where Cleveland scored 39 points? They allowed 3. One was that first run. That was like a weird, just play overall. That just doesn't happen at all. You had that. The second one was on one of the fumbles, I believe, definitely one of the turnovers. And then it was the last drive of the game where really that touchdown shouldn't have happened at all. Other than that, they just held Cleveland at field goals at most. And Cleveland's kicker was making 54-yard field goals. Like, they were doing a good job on Cleveland's offense in general. Like you said, they couldn't run the ball really at all besides that one big run. Couldn't really pass the ball at all. I wish Deshaun Watson played the entire game because they were just controlling the game with him out there. But no, defense, they did a good job. Again, people are going to paint narratives of the Colts are scoring a lot of points, but the defense is allowing a lot too. The offense has put him in those situations. And here, I'm actually a little hopeful about this team too, oddly enough, because they scored 38 points on apparently the best defense in like the last 10 years, statistically speaking.
Okay.
Like, they scored 38 points on that defense. So, I mean, you got to be a little hopeful for that at least.
Right. Oh, for sure. And that was a big thing also, just like we said after the Jacksonville game. Gardner Minshew can't push the ball down the field. So teams aren't going to be afraid of the Colts team. And to his credit, they pushed the ball down the field a lot more than they did against Jacksonville. So that's definitely exciting. Yeah, I felt like the offense in general pretty much all day, except for obviously the offensive line had some pass protection issues, primarily on Myles Garrett. But I felt like the offense pretty much all day could do whatever they wanted, running and passing. I mean, the fact that Cleveland came in number 1 in pass defense, number 3 in run defense, and the Colts were able to basically just shred them all day long.
Yeah. And
it's not like the Colts had like Cleveland where they had just like that one huge run and then they couldn't do anything the rest of the game. It was consistent, Matt. It wasn't it wasn't super spotty. Like, they were consistently dominating that line of scrimmage. They were consistently running the football when it mattered. And I think ultimately you look at this team and you're like, I think for me, Matt, I look at this team and I say, this is legitimately the first time I come away from a loss and I can't really fault anybody. Like, I really feel good about how the offense and the defense played. Like, and I don't say, like, usually it's like, oh, one of the units was just not living up to the standards, right? One of the units was falling short, but I don't really feel like, outside of the turnovers, I don't really feel like the offense or the defense was a liability in this game. So it's just like a weird feeling where I've never watched the Colts lose a game, but also watch, the offense and defense and say they both played well.
Yeah, you just got to take care of the football. You can't drop the football. And Blake Freeland, you can't just stand there like a statue when you have to guard Myles Garrett. You can't just stand there, let him run by, and just kind of go, okay. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So hopefully Braden Smith is back soon. I thought this would be a good opportunity to see if Blake Freeland could be the starting right tackle, because if he could, and if he did a good job against Myles Garrett, I think questions would be coming up about, is Braden Smith going to be with the team after this year because of how much money he saved? Now I think Braden Smith is going to be with the team next year. I think you have to keep him. I think that could have been a big difference, because you take that strip sack away that was on Blake Freeland, then I think Colts win the game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And if they just hold on to the football, even if Gardner Minshew takes sacks, like, okay, yeah, you hate that, but don't. This is what I've said consistently. Don't make a bad play worse. Like, don't let it spiral to the point. Like, a sack's already bad enough, but don't go sack and then turnover on top of it. So, Gardner Minshew's turned the ball over way too many times so far, and that's the biggest issue with this offense. Matt, I was joking and saying, but it actually might be true at this rate, the Colts might have a top 10 offense this year and also be the worst team in terms of turning the football over offensively. Yeah. That's how crazy it's been so far with the offense.
Yeah, and it just makes me miss Anthony Richardson so much more, because he's not fumbling football in the end zone.
It's crazy because you take the turnovers away there, and you're like, Gardner Minshew looked good. Like, he looked good yards. Passing it. Yeah, he had 300 yards and spread the ball around, and the Colts made plays consistently passing the football against a really, really vaunted Cleveland defense, and so it was a really weird enigma of a game. Usually you're like, if somebody's bad, they're really bad or whatever, but it was a weird game for Gardner Minshew in that way.
Yeah, he had like a 20-yard touchdown run. He had like 2 touchdown runs in total. One was like a 20-yard run. I mean, he's just, if he can hold on to the football, I really think this team can make the playoffs. I think they have the defense to do it, and they have the offense, apparently, because they're the only team scoring 20 points in every game or more. So if he can take care of the football, with Jonathan Taylor looking good, I think this is a team that can make the playoffs.
And they did it for the majority of the game without Julius Brents, because obviously he left with that quad injury earlier on in the game, and they still were able to hold Cleveland in check for the majority of this game. So, well, thank you, Matt. Really appreciate it. Let me know you got your guys' thoughts on this whole topic of who's to blame, what's to blame. Do you blame the referees? Do you blame more the Colts? Where do you stand on that? And what do you feel about this game, and how do you feel about this team moving forward? That'll do it for this one, guys. Really appreciate everybody's support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Turn on the notification bell so that you are in the loop when we drop new content. But other than that, that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.